Hello, my name is Pam Blum, and I'm one of the directors for the Pranakriya School of Yoga. Happy to offer the Deepening Asana Experience upcoming training. This one is focused on the meditative postures. There are two yoga workout sequences. This meditative posture 2 of the 10 postures, what I've done is list all of the key principles in those 10 postures and kind of edited it down into the most important things to focus on from a physical perspective in terms of diving deeper into exploring these postures. So I'd like to offer with this practice is a sequence or progression of postures that will help prepare for these 10 postures. So of the 10, 3 in the meditative posture 2 are focused on forward flexion, hip hinging, and the emphasis there is specifically on neutral spine, feeling the deeper core musculatures that support our spine in forward flexing. 3 of the postures are focused on back bending, which obviously is strengthening in the posterior chain postural muscles again, but having the mobility and the flexibility in your spine. And then 3 of the postures are focused primarily on upper body strength, which is also a key piece. Like upper body strength, it depends on deeper axial elongation, spinal integrity, core support. So the 4 principles that this particular progression focuses on is maintaining neutral spine, back strength, posterior chain, as well as T-spine mobility. So there's a few of the postures that require, flexion and extension in the thoracic spine specifically. And then the 3rd or 4th principle is adduction of the legs, which also is a piece of core strength. So I hope you enjoy. I think this might be helpful to practice a few times before the 20-hour training. Use a lot of the postures you're probably already doing in your own personal practice will also, of course, prepare you for this, but again, this is my lens that I've focused on in developing this progression, so I hope you enjoy. It is rather brief, and it would probably take about 45 to maybe an hour, 45 minutes to an hour. I'm not going to include any pranayama. I'm going to start with breath of joy, and there'll be a short closing, but again, not really a full meditative practice as much as looking at through this lens of progressions of postures that will help prepare for these 10 particular postures in the meditative posture series 2. All right, so thanks so much for joining me, and I hope this proves helpful. So let's start standing. I'm going to start with breath of joy, as I mentioned. So clear your mat. Maybe a couple of props might be helpful for you. And separate your feet about shoulder width, and start with knees a little bent. So I'm going to limber up first and get some breath moving. Spread your toes nice and wide and roll from the inner edge to the outer edge of your feet as you move your hips around, just to limber through your entire body. Always a good idea here to start cultivating Dirga breath. Reverse in the other direction. Also helpful to spread your toes wide when you feel your feet hit the ground. And hello to my cat, who loves to make a cameo appearance in almost all the videos. All right, and then come to center. A few circles of joy, knuckles forward and shoulder blades apart. As you inhale, lift your arms up. Excuse me, and then open arms back. Hug shoulder blades together. Clasp your fingers, reach your knuckles down. Let's do this 2 more times. So as you reach your knuckles forward, shoulder blades abduct or pull apart. As you lift your palms up, shoulder blades will rotate and elevate. As you reach your elbows back, shoulder blades hug and collarbones broaden. And then knuckles down, shoulder blades depress, elongating through your neck, which always feels delicious. Take it 2 more times. Shoulders forward as you exhale. Inhale to lift and lengthen. Exhale to access that strength in your upper back. And then inhale to glide low. Last one. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale and open. Inhale and reach low. Now let your arms be loose like coat sleeves. A couple of maypoles here. Helps sometimes to lift one heel and kind of pivot. You can also keep your feet flat, which emphasizes that T-spine mobility that I mentioned. So knees a little bent brings a sense of strength and support to your lower body. So these loose arms is exactly what we're going to take into breath of joy. Keep them really loose. Use your legs for strength here and let arms come forward and back now instead of side to side. So it's forward, side, up overhead, and then down to the floor. 3 quick sniffs as your arms are up, and then exhale as they lower. Let's do 10 more rounds. Last 3. Last one. And then let your arms come to stillness all by themselves. Pranayama is always a great way to immediately get into your body. And once you come to stillness, take a stand to the front of your mat. Let's take a few sun breaths here. Root down strong through your feet again. And as you inhale, open your arms wide. Let your palms touch at the top. As you exhale, fold your belly onto your thighs. Pause there for a moment. Let your head hang. This is forward flexion. So you might need blocks under your fingers. You can also let your hands touch the floor. But make certain your knees are bent so your belly rests on your thighs. And you can relax the weight of your head. And you feel the traction in your spine. Your next inhale, rise halfway and lengthen your spine. As you exhale, fold your belly to your thighs. Open your arms, press through your heels with a very long spine. Come all the way up. Palms can touch at the top, and exhale, bring your hands to your heart. Let's do that 2 more times. Inhale, open arms wide. As you exhale, stay very long through your spine. Hinge at your hips, belly on your thighs. Inhale, rise halfway. There is half forward fold. Feel the elongation in your spine. And exhale, fold tighter, belly to thighs. Inhale, open, arms wide, soar up. And exhale, bring your hands to your heart. 1 more round here. Inhale, stretch out and up and open. As you exhale, lengthen to fold, hips, belly to thighs. Inhale, rise. This time, exhale, let your hands rest on the floor or on blocks. And bend and straighten 1 knee at a time. Keep relaxing the weight of your head. So it's almost like you would pedal your dog. This one is, a little release again through your hips, your low back. Now, step back, lowering your knees to the floor to have a seat. And once you have a seat in the middle of your mat, stretch legs out in front. Sit tall. So find your sitting bones in order to elongate your spine. Remember the natural curve, especially in your low back. You're going to feel like you're standing out of your hips. So sometimes helpful to have your hands on your hips, and you can, kind of press down to feel length all the way around your waistline. Now, fingertips can touch lightly to help you maintain that length. This is actually from the joint freeing series. Very helpful for engaging the muscles deep in the front of your hip, your psoas, your hip flexors. So I'm going to start on the right leg and roll your right thigh, internally rotate and externally rotate. So focus your mind's attention here deep in the front of your right hip. Keep breathing deeply and make certain you feel both sitting bones rooted. Work the intrinsic muscles to keep your spine very long. Now, the next time you rotate your thigh in, drag your leg across the midline toward the opposite leg and then rotate your thigh out and open the leg to the side. Keep breathing Dirga breath as you bring the leg in. Well, it's internally rotated, externally rotated, and open. And that's great. You can stay right there. It doesn't slide sometimes very well on a sticky mat, so you might need to unload it, which is the next progression. So you could roll the thigh in, hover your leg off the floor a little bit, and bring it across. That is a big demand on the deeper core muscles. Externally rotate and then open. Now pause in between before switching legs and maybe plop your legs a few times. You can even lean back. Take a deep breath. Then come back up tall. And again, this is an exercise. It's kind of challenging. Root your hips down, lift your breastbone, keep your spine elongated, light touch with your fingers, internally and externally rotate your other leg, the left leg. And really focus on the deeper muscles that not only bring a sense of stability here to keep your torso elevated, but that roll the thigh. Next time the thigh rolls in, adduct and bring it across, externally rotate and drag it out. So right now you can let the weight of the leg kind of rest on the floor. And maybe, again, if your sticky mat is sticky, you might have to unload it a little bit. But try to keep both sitting bones planted, spine long. And then one more time, if you can hover the leg without collapsing your spine, internally rotate, bring it across, that's adduction. Externally rotate and take it out. Nice. And then plop your legs a few more times. Now I'm going to stretch through your hip flexors. You can bring your legs all the way together. Actually, that feels good. You can bounce them in and bounce them out. And then make your way to center on your mat and roll down onto your back. Bring your knees into your chest, one hand on each knee, and circle your knees around a few times. Again, still creating some heat in your hips. Reverse the circles. Now, this also moves your pelvis into anterior and posterior tilting. So as your knees come in, you can feel your pelvis tip to the rear. As your knees move away, you can feel your pelvis tip forward. And that's usually feels good for one, but it's also a very healthy movement. Now roll to, I'm going to go to my right side first. So roll to your side, prop your head on your hand like a little cushion, and bring your knees forward. Slide your top leg, the left leg, back, and then your top arm forward. This is called clock arm and leg. Now sweep forward and back, so as the leg comes forward, the arm can sweep overhead and behind you, and there's that T-spine mobility. So we create this sort of circle, semicircle, on the floor. The leg comes forward as your arm goes back, and then as your hand comes forward, the leg goes back. So they're moving in opposition to each other. Breathe deeply here. And this is the T-spine mobility that I mentioned earlier. It's also a lovely hip flexor stretch with the leg back behind you, and that opens through the front of your hip. It's great shoulder mobility. Deep breath. And do this just one more time. You're always welcome to stay there longer. This is fabulous if you've been sitting for a long time too. Now, bend both knees, and it's helpful to have a block in between your knees so that the top knee is in line with your top hip. So if you have a cushion or a block, and keep your knees kind of, close, directly out in front so that your hips stay stable here. Place your top hand forward on the floor again, and this is just the open book. So open, top arm out back, and then bring the top arm forward. And do that a few times. Your head will roll on and off of your bottom hand. And as you create the big arc, it helps to inhale as you open and exhale as you close. Now keep hugging the block so that your knees and your hips stay still, and you're trying to get the rotation again through your thoracic spine. And do that just one more time. Nice. And then make your way back to center. You can place the block off to the side and roll to your back for happy baby. Bring both knees in. Keep your tailbone anchored to the floor as you reach down and catch hold of your feet or your ankles. Pull your feet up in the air and draw your knees down. So feel deep hip flexion here. Again, that is a principle that's in 3 of the 10 postures that we'll focus on. So as you draw your knees in toward your armpits, keep anchoring your tailbone to the floor. You can stretch legs out long. Keep one knee in and maybe stretch the other leg out. Alternate side to side. And then let's switch sides for the clock arm and leg. So roll over to your other side. Let your head rest on your bottom arm. And take the top arm forward and top leg back. And then start to sweep in opposite directions. Oh, this is so lovely. Deep breath. This also opens up, or energizes, kind of activates the spiral line in your body. So this twist kind of spirals all through from one shoulder to the opposite hip. And deep breath there. Let's take it one more time and try to generate the biggest circle you can with your fingers touching the floor. Arm will probably leave the floor, at some point. A lot of times if your chest and shoulder is a little restricted, which is fine. And then my cat is having his workout too. Bring your block between your knees and knees forward. And the typically knees in front of your hips. You can even have them closer to help keep your hips nice and stable. Top arm, open book. Open the arm out back behind you. And then bring it forward. Again, your head will kind of roll on and off of your bottom hand. Breathe deeply. Helps to inhale as you open. And exhale as you close. One more. And then, of course, if you wanted to hang out, once you're in that open position, that feels really nice too. You can stay back there and kind of pause for a few breaths. And then release your block and come over around into kneeling, into hands and knees. With your knees under your hips and hands under your shoulders, easy cat-cow. Inhale, lifting your chin and your tail, and as you exhale, round through your spine. And remember, there are parts of your spine, because of the natural curve, especially here in cat, where it's really easy to round through your upper back, your thoracic spine. And then in cow, it's kind of easy to extend through your lumbar spine. So pull that, the action, the flexion here into the areas that is a little more challenging to access. So as you round through your spine in cat, work more to draw your tailbone between your thighs to pull that sense of spaciousness and rounding into your lumbar spine where it's a little less likely to occur. And then in cow or uncat, again, it's easy to feel it in your lumbar spine, but can you allow more of your breastbone to release toward the floor so you can feel that motion in your T-spine, in your middle back. Now I want to pause and use this position for a hand dance because there is a fair amount of work with the upper body strength in these postures. Rotate one palm up with your fingers facing your body and then switch. Now there's 4 positions in the hand dance. And rotate the pointing fingers in. So you go through these 4 directions of rotating the back of your hand toward the mat, which is really just a great hip, wrist flexor, forearm release. Breathe deeply. And you can kind of put a little bit of pressure on your hand, the back of your hand. Let's go around one more time. So as you turn the back of the hand down toward the mat, your fingers will, just continue to rotate around in all 4 directions, stretching through the back of your hand and your forearm. Try to straighten the arm out as much as possible. I would avoid locking the joint. That's usually never recommended. Straight and strong, but supported by muscles. Nice. Then spread fingers, probably fingers pointing forward. Bend your elbows out to the side. And rotate your arm bones so that as your elbows bend, let's call that the eye of your elbow points toward each other. And you get this sort of motion through your shoulders. Breathe deeply here. Work to keep your neck nice and long, and then reverse this direction. So now elbows point back towards your knees, open wide, and press. And you can adjust your hands, however feels good to you. But make sure that your fingerprints are working, so you're not heavy in the heel of your hand. Let's do this one more time. And feel rotation in your arms as well as strength. Now step your right foot to the outside of your right pinky. So it's a wide step. Anchor your foot strong so the knee points straight up. Right hand on your right knee and twist and look up toward the ceiling. Now if it works, tuck your back toes under to lift your back knee and press through your heel. Take one more deep breath. And I have no idea why my cat is so noisy. He is typically not that noisy. Take one more deep breath there. So you feel this kind of kneeling lizard. Release your back knee, lower your hand, step your right knee back, tuck your toes, hips to heels, and lift into down dog. And go ahead and pedal, shake and wag in your down dog. Always a fabulous forward flexion here. That's down dog truly is, hinging at your hips. Keep elongating. And feel, that idea of axial elongation. Your spine, especially here, so long. So come to stillness in your down dog. Spread your toes, soften your knees just a little in order to feel your hips reach way up and back. And in opposition, the tips of your ears reach toward your thumbs. Take a very deep breath in and out through your mouth. Do that again, deep breath in. Exhale. One more time, deep breath in. Exhale. And then lower your knees back down into table. Step your left foot up to your left pinky finger and let your hips sink low. Excuse me, and shoulders stacked over your wrists. Tuck your back toes under to lift your back knee. And press into your left hand into your left knee, twist, and look up toward the ceiling. You want to press down strong with your right hand. Remember, use your fingerprints. If the back knee being lifted doesn't feel good to you, place your knee back down. You're working not only to rotate, but to elongate. Take one more deep breath. Nice, and then place your left hand down. Now, lower your back knee. Step back again, tuck your toes, lift your hips way up and back into down dog. Come to stillness in your down dog unless you still need to move a little bit, but spread your toes wide and probably hands width in between your feet. Let your heels sink low. Keep stretching your hips way up and back. Now sense in your mind's eye your waistline is equally long all the way around. The front, the back, and both sides. You soften your elbows just a little bit and hug your elbows toward each other. Press down more into your fingers and make your neck a little longer. It's almost like a long neck turtle, kind of coming out of its shell. And take two more deep Ujjayi breaths here. Build a ton of strength in stillness in your down dog. Continue to find deep breath, which always activates some of those deep core muscles, as well as long spine. That includes your neck. Now walk your feet forward and wrap your feet around your hands. So your hands can walk back between your feet. They'll turn to face this way. So your feet are probably wide. This is for deeper squat. As your toes turn out, bend your knees. It's like happy baby. But now instead of being on your back, you're in an upright position. Now there's also, this is called bound triangle in some of the older texts. So once you drop your bottom, and then you might have heard it called sort of a Hindi squat, but it's a deep squat. Work to get your spine long. You can have elbows on your thighs. Keep the Ujjayi breath. You can also come to hands to prayer in Anjali Mudra, which helps you to press your knees open. Feet flat. And if it works, you can reach your hands down and grab hold of your ankles. Keep drawing your tailbone down and the crown of your head up. If you can grab your right ankle, open your left arm up into a twist and breathe. And this turns into a bind, so if you're familiar and you wanted to wrap your hands underneath of your leg and bind, you could also wrap your arm around the outside of your leg and bind. But let's come back to center. Before we switch sides, lift your hips up, turn toes forward, so stay in that wide stance, Relax your head, and sometimes feels really nice to sway side to side. Belly's resting between your thighs, so you're definitely focusing on the hip hinging action here. You keep your heads relaxed so your spine feels long. Let's go back down, turn your toes out. Probably, everybody's distance is going to be a little different. Drop your bottom, and you have to explore. Even though yoga is a technique, it's not necessarily about the technique. It's about exploring, how the pose can be varied in order to meet you where you are. So sometimes the squat is better higher here. You build a ton of strength. Work to keep your spine long. Okay, so even if you have to come up with your elbows on your knees and your hand can catch your calf, let's try to work with that bind. Catch your ankle or your hand to the floor or your calf and open your right arm up. Keep your spine long. Take one more deep breath here. And then bring your hands down, lift your hips back up, turn your toes forward. This time heel toe your feet in so you're in forward fold. And do that little pedaling that we did earlier. Bend and straighten one knee at a time. You can shake your head, let your hips kind of wag a little bit side to side. And then walk back again into down dog and take a deep breath in. And a slow exhale, lower both knees down to the floor and come up tall into kneeling. Okay, this is a kneeling stargazer. So take right foot, or right knee rather, and step it forward, just like you would take a step. So one knee forward of the other knee, both hips point, forward square to the front edge of your mat. Clasp your hands behind your tail and reach your knuckles toward the floor. So get this depression of your shoulder blades. Try to get your palms all the way together. Hug your shoulder blades together and lift your breastbone up to where the wall meets the ceiling in the front of the room. Anchor strong into your left, especially the back knee. Now while you lift your collarbones up and your knuckles down, you can start to move your hands away from your tail to feel more action in your posterior chain in the back side. Press your hips forward, which elongates the hip flexor. Take one more deep breath. And then release your hands. Bring them down to the floor. Step your right knee back. Circle your hips all around your knees before we do that on the other side. You might need to crawl your fingers a little forward. Deep breath. Reverse in the other direction. Always a good idea to use the Ujjayi sound. I feel like Ujjayi is a little like a crowbar. It gets into all those nooks and crannies and any kind of restrictions. Then make your way back up tall to kneeling. This time your left knee takes a step forward. Again, keep your knees, hip distance so they're in line with your hips. Hips drive forward. Clasp your hands. Try the awkward way with the other hand, finger or thumb on top, the way you're less likely to clasp. Reach knuckles down. Press your hips forward as if there were a wall there. Drive your hips forward and really work to lift your collarbones up as you reach your knuckles straight down. And then start to move your hands away from your tail. Be certain the back of your neck is long and use the Ujjayi sound. Strong breath. But if you engage your right, as you anchor down into your right knee, that may help you to engage your right glute just a little more. One more breath. Nice. And then release your hands, bring them back down to the floor, and lower all the way down to your belly. Now I'm going to talk you through this one because it involves, having your face all the way down to the floor as well as your arms long at your sides with your palms down. So stay there with your face down. Either have your your nose or your chin to the floor so the back of your neck is long. Now first, this is called a non-lifting lift. And if you've done the gentle yoga asana teacher training program. This is from that program. It's a fantastic way to access some of these deep, they're called preparatory muscles, the muscles that begin to create the back bending or, any kind of action. So it's a non-lifting lift. First create or establish what is soft here. Be absolutely held by gravity, everything relaxed, and just breathe. And with your hips pressing down or anchored down to the floor there, start to think of lifting just your right leg, but don't actually lift it. What has to happen for the right leg to unload from the floor as if you were going to lift it? Keep lengthening the leg along the floor, unload body weight out of it, and then give the weight of the right leg back to the floor. And do the same thing on the left. Start to think about lifting the left leg, but don't actually do it. As you unload weight from the left leg, you can feel the elongation, the lengthening, and then give the weight of your left leg back to the floor. Now with both arms, do the same thing. Your fingers can spread. As you reach your fingers back along the floor, it's almost as if you're crawling your fingers back a little more like jet wings. And then unload weight from your arms so that maybe you just feel, the hover, like a little kiss of the floor. And then give the weight of your arms back to the floor completely. And then your head. And keep the back of your neck long, so either your nose or your chin or your forehead, whatever you're comfy with, is still there, facing the floor. But hover the weight of your skull, which is pretty substantial. So your head challenges your core muscles in a very big way. Hover the weight of your head just a little bit off of the floor, and then start to build that from the top down. So now both arms feel as if they're going to lift, but they don't actually lift. And both legs feel as if they're going to lift, but they don't actually lift. It's almost like you're velcroed to the floor and you're trying to unstick yourself, but you don't actually lift. Really engage and tap into that first layer, that first gear of preparatory muscles. That's your nervous system gearing up to turn on the more global, more superficial muscles in your body. Hold that for 2 more breaths. Super powerful, big, important piece of growing the pose. Now on your next breath, start to lift everything up. Your head, your shoulders, your arms, your legs. Keep your thighs hugging together. Keep your big toe knuckles touching. Reach your fingers way back. Take 1 more full breath there. And then slowly, slowly, slowly start to melt back down as slow as you can. As slow as you can. And when everything lands, turn your head to one side and be super soft and just relax. Let go of your breath, let your body breathe. Now let's turn our attention to the front of your body. Again, these are all for core strength. Prop up onto your elbows. This is for Crocodile. And then lift your hips so you're on your knees. Now be certain your elbows are under your shoulders. And with your knees down, shoulders and hips are in the same plane. Now let your chest lower between your arms. That hugs your shoulder blades together. And then press your chest away from the floor. Your shoulder blades come apart. Do that a couple of times. Keep your head still and your breath smooth. Feel the gliding motion of your shoulder blades on your rib cage. Such a very healthy and important movement. Now press the floor away. Keep pressing the floor away. Keep your neck long and your breath smooth. Tuck your toes under. If it works, lift your knees. Now keep breathing Ujjayi sound. Swivel your left fist to your right elbow so that you roll to your left elbow with your right hand to your right hip. You can stay there. You can reach your arm along. You can keep your hand on your hip. Head's in line with your spine. Okay, so stack your shoulders. Breathe Ujjayi sound. If it works, lift your top leg, abduct, and breathe. And smile. Smile always helps. And slowly lower. Ease your way back around into Crocodile. Forearms parallel. Walk your feet in so your hips lift up. And pause. Your knees are bent. So it's kind of a forearm down dog at that point. You can pedal and shake or wag. Then walk your feet back again to lower into Crocodile. Breathe deeply. Helps to press not heavy in your elbows. Feel the whole length of your forearms. And sometimes I even use the pinky edge of my hand. Press down pretty strong there. Keep exploring, right? How does the pose, how can you refine the pose to activate, to feel both more strength and more opportunity. Swivel your right fist to your left elbow, roll to your right elbow, and left hand can come to your hip. You can lay it long. You can stretch it up in the air. You can have your bottom knee down. It does not have to be up. Sometimes you feel more strength with the bottom knee down. If you can keep wherever you are, if it works, lift the top leg and keep your head in line with your body. And take 3 more deep breaths there as you drive the floor away and reach long through your spine as well as the top leg and the top arm. Ease yourself back into Crocodile. Now if you're on your toes, then take a little Crocodile walk. So you walk opposite hand and foot forward. Or actually, same hand and elbow. You can kind of play back and forth, but take a little walk to feel total body strength. If it's opposite hand and foot, it usually works a little better. And then pause, lower your knees, lower your belly, and let your head rest on your hands. Say ah. Now bring your hands under your shoulders, press up to table, tuck your toes, and lift your hips up and back into down dog. Let's have a few Ujjayi breaths here. Remember, Ujjayi sound not only is a great meditation tool or focus tool, but it activates, there's respiratory muscles that are a big part of, they are involved in core strength. How more powerful of a breath, not only more vitality, more energy, more prana, but also more action in your core body. Walk your feet with as few steps as possible up to your hands into forward fold. Now feet are parallel to each other, root down strong through the whole surface, spread your toes wide. You probably have a little more body weight in your heels, and that's kind of normal. Spread toes, feel the inner edge and the outer edge. Bring your hands to your hips, and make sure you know that your hips are right where your thigh bone plugs in. It's that crease, right where your thigh bone plugs into your hip socket. Your thumb on the crest of your pelvis. Lift your belly off your thighs and lift your torso into Jackknife. So your shoulders are a little higher than your hips. Now, Jackknife is incredibly beneficial for building core strength, especially with your torso relative to gravity in this position. Soft knees, lift your tailbone. So with your thumbs on the crease of your pelvis in the back, you can guide your pelvis into a parallel position with the floor, and then elongate your waistline so again it feels equal and long all the way around. Open your arms in T. Say hello every core muscle you own. Thumbs point up, so your biceps, that's external rotation in your shoulder socket. Biceps point up toward the ceiling, make your neck longer. Your body weight's probably a little heavier in your heels. And then you can begin to straighten out your legs, but make sure that your tailbone stays lifted and the natural curve is in your low back. Very slowly, press through your heels. Feel the work to grow, to get taller, to lift up. Frame your ears with your arms. And then take a big step back with your right foot into triangle. So your right foot can open, or as it steps back, you turn your right toes in. Right heel opens a little further, so right heel out. Now that's internal rotation on your right thigh, okay? External rotation on the left. Reach your arms wide. Keep your spine vertical to gravity. Right from your hip crease, that left thigh, right where it plugs into your hip crease, reach the hip crease back, slide your left arm forward into triangle posture. Now feel that if you need support, you take your hand, to the inner aspect of your knee, your thigh, your calf, and press a little bit to help yourself to roll your top shoulder and top waistline or ribs open. Now, if you don't need that help, feel the core strength, especially in your upper back and your shoulders, to keep your arms in line with your shoulders. Now press down into your front foot to come back up and lower both arms. Heel toe in just a little bit. I'm going to take this to balancing side moon. So press off of your front foot and step back. I'm going to feel this transition to shift forward onto the front foot and to shift back onto the back foot. And take that transition a few times, which is a lot of core strength, to control the transfer of body weight from one foot to the other. And then when you're ready, shift forward into the front foot, lift your back foot. Hands on your hips helps you to stack your hips perpendicular to the floor, or in line with the floor. They're stacked like building blocks. Reach your left arm down, and if you want, right arm can go up in the air. Ardha Chandrasana, which is obviously a balance challenge. Balancing half moon. Now radiate out in all directions. A little softness in the front knee. And feel all those crocodile muscles, right? When we did the crocodile, how your waistline is engaged here. And then gracefully bend your front knee and step back. Hands on your hips. Let's turn triangle to the other side. So right toes turn forward. That's external rotation in the right thigh. Hips in line with the side edge of your mat. Internally rotate the back thigh. Sometimes I even do that with my hands to help, feel the spiral in the hip socket. Square hips, long waistline, spread your wings, easy neck. Right from your hip crease, reach your right arm forward, let your hips tip over, and stack your arms in line with your shoulders. Breathe. Remember, front knee held unlocked. It's helpful sometimes to think of your front sitting bone, your right sitting bone in this case, reaching toward your left ankle. Is there any way you could feel more radiance through your arms? Right from your shoulder root. Spread out every finger, long, strong arms, deep, full breath. Press down into the ground to soar back up. Bring your hands into your hips. Maybe heel toe in a little so that you shorten up your stance, and step back to your back foot to practice the transfer of body weight here for balancing half moon. Step forward and lift and transfer back. Obviously a drishti helps, so you focus on something with your eyes, but also a steady breath. Right, the next time you transfer forward, find your balance point. It does not have to be parallel to the floor. Keep the standing knee a little bent. Tip your hips over. Maybe reach your front hand. So a lot of times, of course, a block is helpful there. If you want to have a block in your hand to lightly touch the floor, try not to rely on the block so much. Rely more on your core strength. If you want to spread the top arm open, long neck, steady breath. And then gracefully bend your standing knee, step the back foot down, and come to the front of your mat. Now in upward mountain, frame your ears with your arms. This is all hip flexor strength. Right, root down strong into your left foot. Lift your right leg straight out in front. And I say hip flexor, but it's a ton of core strength. Your whole body working here. When you reach the leg forward, avoid buckling the standing knee or collapsing through your torso. Only lift the leg to the place where you can keep your standing knees straight and strong, not locked, but strong, and your torso long. Now sweep the right leg back, and this is for balancing stick. Open your arms wide, thumbs point up, biceps roll up, and you reach the back heel as if you're standing on the back wall. Keep breathing deeply. And then step all the way back with your right foot. Reach your arms out and up into Warrior One, Virabhadrasana 1. Right heel points straight up. Maybe a little back bend here. Reach up and back. Now as you exhale, very slow, soft landing. Feel the length in your spine as you reach out and over the front thigh. Hands come down. Step to plank. Keep your feet together. Press strong into both hands. Hands probably as wide as your mat. Press to your right hand. Roll the side plank, Yastikasana. You can also do this on your elbow. If you're on your hand, press the floor away. I'm going to suggest this time we flip our side plank. Step your left foot behind you on the floor. Roll both the right foot flat so your toes, all your toes, point to the back of the room. Lift your hips up. Reach your left arm way up overhead. Keep pushing the floor away. Think like bridge and drive your hips super high. One more full breath. Unflip your plank. Come back around into regular plank. Hips up high into down dog. With as few steps as possible, walk your feet up to your hands into forward fold. And then through Jackknife, open your arms wide, long spine, eyes open, lift all the way up, and arms stay overhead for upward mountain. We'll do that on the other side. Now feel the length here in your upward mountain, especially in your spine. Arms create a little runway so you can reach your ears up toward your thumbs so your neck feels long. Root into your right foot, lift your left leg straight out in front, and breathe. Remember, do not compromise. So maybe you need to bend the front knee, and that's totally fine. Maybe you need to lower it a little bit. Keep the standing leg strong and your spine long. Open or sweep the leg back as you open your arms into balancing stick, Yastikasana, or it's actually more like an airplane with your arms out wide. Now the back heel points straight up. Feel a little maybe internal rotation of the back thigh. Even though your legs are split, feel your inner thighs hugging toward each other. Now this time, if you can bring your arms up overhead, that becomes Dandayamana, Yastikasana, the balancing stick. Oh, ton of work through your whole body. Breathe. Soft landing of the back foot to lift into Virabhadrasana 1. Maybe a little back bend. As your arms frame your ears, maybe your arms can go behind your ears to feel more work in your upper back. Now slow landing, reach way out, way out, way out over your front thigh. Hands land softly. Step to plank, feet together, hands as wide as your mat. Press to your left hand and roll to Vashistasana, the side plank. Welcome to stay right here. Or variation, step the right foot behind you. Your toes will point to the back of the room. As you roll, try to get the left foot flat as well. So your left toes point to the back of the room. Lift your hips, reach your right arm way up overhead. Feel the strength in the back of your body to drive your belly, your chest, and your hips high. Take one more deep breath. And then slowly make your way back around into plank and lift into down dog. Ujjayi breath. Hands within between your feet. Feel the hip crease. Down dog again is a forward fold. It's an inversion. It's upper body strength. Now roll your biceps up toward the ceiling. Make your neck longer. Make your waistline longer. Stretch your hips up and back. Take your right foot. Step it halfway up for pyramid. And lower your left heel flat. You can keep your fingers way out in front to walk, further forward, to keep your spine long, your waistline long. Fold your belly to your front thigh. You can also walk your hands back behind you and suction cup your fingers on the floor and kind of pull as if it's almost like you're trying to, if you were on a conveyor belt, you were trying to pull your mat forward underneath of you. Keep lengthening your belly along your front thigh. Take one more deep breath. Walk your hands forward if they're not there. Step back to down dog. Take a deep breath in. And lower both knees to the floor. Come up tall into kneeling. Step your right foot forward into a 90-degree bend. Sit on your left heel. Now, if that doesn't feel good, you might have blocks where you can have your blocks on either side. And instead of sitting on your heel, you come back as far as you can and drive your hips forward. If you can sit on your heel and you don't need the blocks, fists or fingertips to the floor, same thing. Drive your hips forward, forward and up. Take one more deep breath there. So a big hip flexor stretch. Feel the strength in the back of your body. And then release. Walk your hands forward. Step your right knee back where it came from. Lower your elbows to the floor. Clasp your fingers. Point your pinky fingers forward. Elbows under your shoulders. Tuck your toes. Lift your hips. Upper body strength, dolphin. Now, if you walk your feet a little closer toward you, that's going to give you more weight in your shoulders. Remember, every pose allows so much individuality. You explore and find the refinement that allows you to feel core strength and upper body support. So you drive your elbows firmly into the ground and maybe rock a little forward and back on your toes just a few times. And access the strength through your shoulders. If you can rock forward and give your knuckles a little kiss, and then rock back. And maybe you rock forward and give your pinky finger a little kiss, and rock back. Now lower your knees, climb up onto your hands, hips rise into down dog. Step your left foot forward for pyramid. Fix your feet so they're pointing forward and they're a little east and west. So they're not, tight on a narrow balance beam or anything. Walk fingers forward, belly to your thigh. Lengthen your head, your neck. Ujjayi breath. Maybe you walk your hands back and pull. Sometimes it's nice to grab the back thigh. You could clasp your hands behind, like clasp your fingers behind your back thigh and help to pull yourself forward into a forward fold. But as you pull forward, try not to shorten your spine, right? You want to stay long. So feel the feedback of your thigh on your belly on your thigh on your belly, and keep elongating. One more breath. And then walk your hands forward. Step back into down dog where you started. Take a deep breath in. And lower both knees on the exhale. Come up into kneeling. Step your left foot forward. And if you can, sit on your back heel. And if the blocks are helpful, do that again on this side. Fingers to the floor behind. You probably have to pull your left heel a little closer And then drive your hips up and forward. So it's a little like camel. It's a variation on Virasana, the thunderbolt pose. Reach your knee, your left knee especially, drive it forward like it's magnetized to the front of the room. Press into your left heel. Press your hips high, lift your collarbones, push your fingers down, make the back of your neck long. Take one more deep breath. And then lower your hips. Walk your fingers forward. Step back into table. Now with your hands down, tuck your toes, lift your hips into down dog. And like we did earlier, walk your feet up around your hands and drop your bottom into squat. So we'll kind of make a full circle here. Now, if you want to work a little with crow, which is a great preparation for some of the upper body strength that we'll be working with in these in the Meditative Posture 2 sequence. So with your knees hugging your elbows, you can kind of walk your toes toward each other. So now you're more in bound angle, sort of. You can have your heels touching and get small here so that you're rounding down and your hands are right there under your shoulders. Hug your knees tightly to your triceps and start to shift body weight a little forward and a little back. So you first start there. You start to work shifting, maybe 1 foot curls and back. Feel your fingerprints. It's like you're massaging the floor with your fingerprints. It is a ton of core and upper body strength. Maybe you shift forward, hug. You gotta hug your triceps really tight. Feel your inner thighs working to hug toward each other. Ujjayi sound. Now any version of crow that works for you. Sometimes having your feet on a block is really nice. You could walk your feet up a wall. There's lots of ways to work crow. And once you've finished, lower, have a seat behind your feet. And hands behind, easy windshield wiper. Roll your knees. And then make your way down, feet out in front, onto your back. If you like the knee circles, anything that feels good here, just to release and nurture. I'm going to suggest fish. Maybe for you, if there's a different closing posture, but fish is definitely focused on, core, upper body strength, as well as mobility in your T-spine. It also has the adduction of your legs. So remember, those are the key principles in the majority of in all 10 postures that we'll focus on in the upcoming training. So hug your thighs firmly together. Pull your toes back towards you. Press your heels away. Walk your hands down the outside of your thighs to depress your shoulder blades. So you kind of wiggle your shoulder blades underneath of you. Press your elbows into the floor and loft your chest up off the floor. And come to rest on the back top of your head. Make sure the back of your neck is long. And there's not a lot of body weight in your head, mostly in your elbows. Breathe deeply. And imagine if there was a little touch right on the middle of your breastbone, and the invitation is to lift your breastbone more into that touch, more. Keep driving your heels forward, spread your toes, hug your thighs, press down into your elbows, take one more full breath. Lift just enough that your head clears the floor to lower your chest. Separate your legs, let your arms open to the side. And just be soft. Just let go of your breath and let your body breathe its own wise, nurturing, cleansing breath. Stay for maybe another minute and just feel the effects of this particular sequence that was focusing on 4 primary key principles. Your core strength, how the different postures are constantly invitations to explore how to maintain neutral spine, axial elongation, how to engage the preparatory muscles that are first gear, that our nervous system sends messages to say, we need to support, right? The more global, superficial muscles to create various shapes. How the mobility in your thoracic spine is both supportive and nurturing for your entire spine. And how the adduction of your legs engages pelvic floor and kind of helps to zip up all of your core muscles to move through these postures to feel greater degrees of prana, engagement, to tap into our strength, to recognize the restrictions and the opportunities that are present, and how we strengthen our posterior chain, the back side of our body. So thank you very much for tuning in and for exploring this sequence of poses, and I look forward to seeing you in the Meditative Posture